The morning light spilled through the kitchen blinds in thin gold stripes, painting the chipped counter with color. I sat there, a half-empty mug of coffee beside my notebook, laptop open to the scholarship portal. The little spinning circle on the screen had been turning for minutes. I'd refreshed it 12 times, maybe 13. Today was supposed to be the day. The day the university sent out final scholarship confirmations. I had triple-checked my essays, quadruple proofread every sentence. My teachers said I was a sure thing. Behind me, the old clock above the fridge ticked louder than usual. It was 6:12 a.m. My mother, Janet, shuffled in wearing her pink robe, rubbing her eyes. "Still up?" she asked. I nodded, smiling faintly. "I just can't sleep. You know, results." She gave a short laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Honey, don't get your hopes too high. Those universities pick favorites." I tried not to let the words sink in. She said things like that often, small needles hidden inside care. Across the room, my younger brother, Evan, sat at the table, spooning cereal into his mouth while scrolling on his phone. He was 12, full of energy, full of faith in me. "You're totally gonna get it," he said, milk dripping down his spoon. "You worked harder than anyone in this town." "Thanks, bud," I whispered, patting his shoulder. "Let's hope the email agrees with you." Outside, our quiet Ohio neighborhood was still waking up. The sound of sprinklers hissed through the air, and somewhere down the street, a car engine started. Everything looked so normal. Too normal. At 6:20, my laptop dinged, a new notification. I held my breath. But it wasn't the university. It was a promotional email. My heart sank, just a little. Mom leaned over to rinse her cup. "Maybe it's just not meant to be. You've got a good job at the grocery store. You help out here. College isn't everything." Her tone was casual, but I caught something else, a hint of insistence. "I just want to check once more," I said. She shrugged. "Suit yourself. Don't waste your morning on that thing." When she left the room, Evan looked at me with a tiny frown. "Why does a mom want you to go?" I blinked. "She just worries. That's all." But inside, a small knot started forming in my chest. By noon, I'd checked my inbox 20 more times. Nothing. My friends were texting their good news in our group chat, acceptance letters, celebration emojis, pictures with their parents smiling. I sent congratulations with shaking fingers, forcing the corners of my mouth up. At dinner, Dad, Robert, came home smelling of engine grease and exhaustion. "How'd the results go?" he asked casually, spooning mashed potatoes onto his plate. I hesitated. "Still waiting." He nodded, but I noticed the look that flashed between him and Mom. It was quick, a silent exchange. Like they already knew something I didn't. Later that night, after the dishes were done and the lights dimmed, I sat by the window with my laptop one last time. The reflection in the screen looked tired, eyes puffy, shoulders slumped. I whispered to myself, maybe tomorrow. But deep down, I felt it. Something was off. I glanced toward the hallway, where the faint glow of my parents' bedroom light still showed beneath the door. Voices murmured. My name. The word email. And then silence. I shut the laptop, my chest tightening. For the first time, the dream that had kept me alive through years of struggle felt like it was quietly slipping away, not because of failure, but because of something I couldn't yet see. The night air pressed against the window. My reflection looked back at me, hopeful still, but dimmer. The hope hadn't died yet, but it was starting to flicker. 2 days passed, then a week, then 2. Every morning, I'd sit with my coffee, open the laptop, refresh the inbox. Still nothing. The emails that did come, store discounts, newsletters, spam, felt like small insults. Each notification that wasn't the one made my chest tighten a little more. Maybe they forgot, Evan said one afternoon while sitting on the floor, trying to do homework. He had the kind of faith I used to have, unshakable. You could call them, right? I could, I said. But if they didn't pick me, I don't want to sound desperate. The truth was, I had already called once. The woman on the line said the scholarship decisions had been finalized 2 weeks ago. She promised that all recipients had been contacted by email. That was when I really started to wonder.
Because someone had contacted them.
I'd been waiting too long. That evening, Mom asked if I could take an extra shift at the grocery store because Dad's hours were being cut. Just until things even out, she said. We could really use the help. I agreed because saying no still felt impossible. It always had. At work, the fluorescent lights buzzed above me, turning every thought into a dull hum. Between customers, I caught myself staring at the reflection of my name tag, Grace Miller, and thinking how it might have looked on a university ID card instead. By the time I got home, the house smelled like leftover spaghetti and lemon cleaner. Dad was watching TV. Mom was folding laundry at the table. "You're late," she said without looking up. "Extra rush tonight. Did you check your email again?" I hesitated.
Yeah.
Still nothing. She nodded, lips pressed thin. "Well, maybe that's for the best. You know how expensive moving out would be." That was the moment I felt the first crack form, tiny, invisible, but deep. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Ms. Lang, my high school counselor. "Grace, I hope you're doing okay. I saw the scholarship announcement list today. Call me tomorrow." My heart skipped. I read it twice. 3 times. Then my stomach dropped. When I went to the kitchen to tell my parents, they were already in quiet conversation. I stood at the doorway, invisible, as Mom whispered, "She's still asking about that scholarship. She'll forget it eventually." Dad grunted.
Good.
"We can't afford to lose her right now." I froze. Every part of me wanted to walk in and demand an explanation, but my body wouldn't move. I just stood there, hand gripping the doorframe until my knuckles turned white. The next morning, I texted Ms. Lang. She called immediately. Her voice was hesitant. "Grace, sweetheart, you got it. Full tuition. Room and board." The room spun. "What? You were supposed to get the acceptance email weeks ago. I don't understand why you didn't." I sat down hard on the couch, my knees weak. "They said I didn't get it." She went quiet. "Who said that?" When I didn't answer, she did. "Your parents, didn't they?" Tears blurred the world into soft shapes. After the call ended, I didn't cry out loud. I just sat there, numb, staring at the spot on the floor where the morning light hit the carpet. A part of me wanted to believe there had been some mistake, that maybe my parents hadn't seen the email, that maybe it was all confusion. But somewhere deeper, a voice whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. They knew. They knew, and they hid it. By evening, I was helping Mom make dinner again, chopping onions like nothing had changed. My hands moved, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying every, maybe next year, every you belong here, every moment I'd trusted them blindly. Evan came in humming, setting the table. "Still no news?" he asked. I forced a smile. "No news." My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. When dinner ended, I took my plate to the sink, the sound of water running hiding the soft tremor in my breath. Behind me, my parents laughed at something on TV. I looked down at the bubbles in the sink, fragile, fleeting, and realized that was how my dreams had been treated. A faint reflection of myself shimmered on the steel faucet. My eyes looked empty, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the girl staring back. When you grow up being the good one, it takes years to realize that goodness was just obedience in disguise. I used to think my parents' world revolved around me, that all the rules, all the sacrifices, all the pressure were because they believed in me. But looking back, it wasn't belief. It was convenience. From as far back as I can remember, I was the one who held things together. When the electric bill came late, I was the one calling customer service, pretending to be my mother's assistant. When Dad forgot to pick up Evan from school, I was the one walking 2 miles to bring him home. Mom used to smile at me afterward and say, "You're so responsible, Grace. I don't know what we'd do without you." It sounded like love back then. Now I know it was training. We weren't a bad family, not in the way movies show. No screaming fights, no smashed plates. Our home looked normal from the outside. A tidy 2-story with blue shutters, a small front yard, and a wind chime that caught the evening breeze. But the quiet was its own kind of control. Everything unspoken had weight. I remember one Christmas when I was 14. I'd saved $50 from babysitting to buy Mom a silver bracelet I'd seen in a local shop window. When I gave it to her, she smiled and said, "That's sweet, honey, but we really needed that money for groceries." She handed it back. I never bought her a gift again. Years later, when I started getting straight A's and teachers told me college was within reach, Dad began to downplay it. "Don't waste your time chasing fancy degrees," he said once, polishing his tools in the garage. "Smart girls stay close to family." Every time I talked about my dreams, studying journalism, moving to Chicago, Mom's voice softened with guilt. "You know we can't make it without you," she'd say. "You're the only one who keeps us afloat." And I'd believe her, because I wanted to be good. Because love, to me, meant staying useful. The summer before senior year, I worked 2 part-time jobs, cashier by day, waitress by night, just to help with rent. I told myself it was temporary, that once I got into college, I'd finally live for myself. Then the rejection started, not from schools, but from my own parents. When Ms. Lang first mentioned applying for scholarships, Mom dismissed it. "Why bother? They never give those to people like us." Dad added, "And who's going to take care of your brother?" I laughed it off at the time, but it stayed with me. Now, sitting on the couch with my phone in hand and Ms. Lang's voice still echoing in my ears, everything connected. The warnings, the diversions, the missing emails. They hadn't protected me. They'd kept me. I got up and went to my room. The walls were covered with posters, faded city skylines, a world map with tiny red pins in all the places I wanted to visit someday. My laptop sat on the desk, quiet, almost mocking. I clicked through my old sent emails, then my drafts. Nothing. But in the deleted folder, a single message caught my eye. It was from the university. Subject line: "Congratulations, Grace Miller, Scholarship Award Confirmation." My heart stopped. I opened it. The date was from 6 weeks ago. The read receipt was marked, "Read by Janet Miller." I stared at that line until my eyes burned. Every flashback hit me at once. Mom shooing me away from her computer, telling me not to clutter her inbox. Dad changing the Wi-Fi password without telling me. The excuses, the silences, the way they had both acted like nothing happened. This wasn't overprotection. It was possession. I scrolled down to the body of the email. It was everything I'd dreamed of: tuition, housing, even a stipend for books. All of it mine. Or it should have been. But my parents had already stolen 2 months of my future. I closed the laptop slowly, the world around me oddly still. The house creaked. The wind chimes sang outside. I thought of Evan, of how he looked at me with trust, the same trust I'd given our parents for 18 years. And for the first time, I saw the cycle clearly. Mom had once stayed home to take care of her parents, and now she wanted me to repeat the pattern. To keep the house running, to sacrifice dreams for duty. They called it love. But love doesn't hide your wings. I leaned back in my chair, my heart a storm between grief and fury. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted, a thin wall cracking open, light slipping through. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even a decision yet. Just a whisper, trembling but alive. "They don't own me." A few days passed after I found that email. The secret sat in my chest like a burning coal, small but impossible to ignore. I didn't confront them right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But years of conditioning kept me quiet. Instead, I replayed every conversation we'd had in the past month, hearing the truth hidden inside their words. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. "You don't have to leave us. Family is everything." Each sentence was a chain disguised as comfort. By the 3rd day, the tension in the house had its own sound, a kind of heavy silence that pressed against the walls. Even Evan noticed. "Why do you keep staring at Mom like that?" he asked at breakfast. I smiled weakly. "Just thinking." He shrugged. "She said you might get a new job soon. Is that true?" I didn't answer. That night, I came home from my shift at the grocery store to find a stack of papers on the kitchen table. My father sat beside them, reading glasses perched on his nose. Mom was stirring soup, humming softly. When I got closer, I saw what the papers were: job listings. Local ones. Grocery stocker, receptionist, babysitter. Dad looked up. You're turning 19 soon. It's time to start helping with the bigger bills. I stared at the listings. I told you I wanted to go to college. He sighed, setting the paper down. College doesn't put food on this table. You think some fancy degree's gonna save you? The world doesn't care about dreams, Grace. Mom added, and honestly, we need you. You can take classes at the community college later. Maybe online. My hands trembled. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. You mean the one I didn't get to go to because you deleted my scholarship email? The room froze. Mom's wooden spoon clattered against the pot. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. What are you talking about? Mom asked, voice too calm. I took a breath so deep it hurt. I saw it. The email. It was marked as read by you. Her face drained of color, then flushed red. Grace, you're being dramatic. We thought it was spam. Spam? My voice cracked. An official scholarship email with my name in the subject line? Dad pushed back his chair, slow and deliberate. Watch your tone. You're still living under our roof. I know, I said. That's the point, isn't it? The words came out sharper than I'd ever spoken before. The air in the room thickened. Mom reached for me, her voice breaking. You don't understand what it's like. We needed you here. If you left, we'd fall apart. And if I stay, I whispered, I'll fall apart instead. Evan peeked from the hallway, eyes wide, clutching his cereal bowl like a shield. I softened my tone instantly. Go back to your room, buddy. It's okay. He didn't move. You're leaving, aren't you? I forced a smile. Not yet. But inside, the decision had already formed. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The fan spun in lazy circles, slicing through the dark. I thought about all the chances I'd given them to do right by me. Every time I'd chosen silence over conflict, loyalty over honesty. And for what? To be the anchor that kept everyone else from drifting, even if it meant drowning myself. The thought made my chest ache, but the ache turned into something sharper. Resolve. I opened my laptop again and typed a new email to the university. Dear Admissions Office, I recently discovered that my scholarship confirmation may not have reached me. Is there any way my offer can still be honored? My fingers shook as I hit send. Outside, dawn crept in slowly, pale light filling the room. For the first time, it didn't feel like another day in the same cage. It felt like the first step out. I sat there until the birds began to sing, the faint hum of the refrigerator behind me, my pulse steady now. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. They'd never change. And I was finally done waiting for them to. The morning after I sent that email, everything in the house looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The same half-wilted flowers sat on the kitchen counter. The same hum of the old refrigerator filled the air. But for the first time, I wasn't part of it. I was just watching it all, like a guest. I brewed my own coffee, skipped breakfast, and walked to work without saying a word. Halfway through my shift, I checked my phone and froze. A new message. Subject: Scholarship confirmation. My heart nearly stopped. The email was short but life-changing. Dear Grace, thank you for reaching out. Your scholarship offer is still valid. Please confirm your enrollment by this Friday to secure your spot. Friday. 2 days. I read the message 3 times, my hands trembling. Then, without thinking, I laughed. A small, shaky laugh that startled the woman's stocking shelves next to me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, still smiling. Actually, I think I am. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. Then I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. A duffel bag with my laptop, some clothes, a photo of me and Evan from last summer, and my worn notebook full of sketches and poems. At around midnight, the floorboards creaked behind me. I turned and saw Evan, rubbing his eyes. You're really going? He whispered. I knelt beside him. I have to, buddy. Mom's gonna be mad. I know. But she'll be okay. And so will you. He frowned. Can I come with you? That question shattered me. I pulled him into a hug. Not yet. You need to finish school. But one day, you'll have your own story to write, and you won't let anyone hold the pen but you. Okay. He nodded, tears shining in his eyes. Will you call me? Every week. Promise. When he went back to bed, I slipped out quietly. The night air hit me like a wave. Cool, sharp, alive. I walked to the bus stop with my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. The ride to the city was only an hour, but it felt like crossing a lifetime. Streetlights blurred past the window as I clutched my bag to my chest. When I arrived at the small campus dorm, the clerk at the front desk looked confused. Are you sure you're supposed to check in tonight? She asked. I'm sure, I said, showing her the printed email. My voice didn't even shake. The room they gave me was tiny, a narrow bed, a desk, a window with no view. But to me, it was a castle. I sat on the bed and cried, not out of sadness, but release. Years of quiet endurance poured out in tears I hadn't realized I'd been holding. By morning, I felt weightless. When I called home later that day, Mom didn't answer. But Dad did. His voice was tight. So, you just ran away?
No, I said.
I left. You think you can survive without us? I already am. He exhaled sharply. We sacrificed everything for you. Then maybe it's time to stop sacrificing me. There was a long silence. Then he muttered, You'll regret this. Maybe, I said softly, but at least they'll be my regrets. I hung up. That evening, I met my roommate, a cheerful art major named Lydia Morgan, who immediately offered to share her pizza and asked why I looked like I'd just escaped a heist. I laughed for the first time in days. In a way, I guess I did.
She grinned.
Good for you. People spend their whole lives waiting for permission to start living. I didn't tell her the details. Not yet. But I wrote everything in my notebook that night. Every feeling, every tremor of fear and triumph. When I finished, I wrote one line at the bottom of the page. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and that's enough. I closed the notebook and turned off the lamp. The hum of the city outside was nothing like the stillness of home. It was alive, messy, unpredictable. And for the first time in my life, so was I. For 2 weeks, I lived in peace. Classes started. I met professors who actually smiled when I asked questions, and Lydia's laughter filled the dorm every evening. I was learning how to exist without waiting for someone else's approval. But peace never lasts long when you've left behind people who thrive on control. It started with the calls. Dozens of them. First from Mom, then Dad, then numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Then came the texts, long paragraphs laced with guilt. You've embarrassed this family. We did everything for you. How could you abandon your brother? By the end of the week, they found out where I was. That Saturday, the knock came just before sunset.
Loud.
Relentless. Lydia jumped. Are you expecting someone? No, I said, my stomach dropping. Through the peephole, my parents. Both of them. Grace. Open this door right now. My mother's voice was sharp, shaking. I cracked it open just enough to see their faces. Mom's eyes were red, Dad's jaw tight. Why are you here? I asked quietly. To bring you home, Dad said. I'm already home. He pushed the door wider, but I held it firm. You've been brainwashed by these people, Mom said. That email was probably fake. We only wanted to protect you. By hiding my future? Her lip trembled. You owe us gratitude, Grace. You owe us respect. I took a deep breath. I owe you love. But love isn't obedience. Behind me, Lydia whispered. Do you want me to call campus security? I nodded slightly. Dad noticed. You're calling the cops on your own parents? No, I said calmly. I'm asking for space. That's all. They both froze when the security guard appeared at the end of the hall, a tall, steady man named Officer Bennett, who'd been doing rounds nearby. Everything all right here? He asked. Dad straightened. This is our daughter.
She's confused.
We're taking her home. The officer looked at me. Ma'am, I'm a student here. I'm safe. I don't want them inside. He nodded. Then they'll need to leave. Mom's face twisted with disbelief. You can't just— Yes, ma'am, the officer interrupted politely. If she says no, that's the law. Dad clenched his fists but didn't move. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But it's mine to make. They finally turned to go. But before Mom walked away, she looked at me with wet eyes. You'll come crawling back, Grace. You always do. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. Not this time, I said. Because this time, I know who I am. When the elevator doors closed on them, the hallway felt like the quiet after a storm, thick, heavy, unreal. Lydia exhaled.
Wow.
That was intense. Yeah, I said, leaning against the wall. But I think it's finally over. Later that night, Evan called from his tablet. His voice was small. They're saying you hate us. I could never hate you, Ev. Then why did you leave? I swallowed hard. Because sometimes, to save yourself, you have to step away from the people who don't want you to grow. He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, I miss you. I miss you too, I said, smiling through tears. But I'm building something here. Something that's going to make it better for both of us someday. When the call ended, I sat by the window, watching the lights of the campus flicker below. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Freedom didn't roar. It just sat there quietly beside me, in the stillness, reminding me that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the decision to stop participating in it. For the first time in my life, I didn't need to be the fixer, the apologizer, or the good daughter. I was just Grace. And that was enough. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight spilling across the dorm floor, warm, steady, forgiving. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Peaceful. Lydia had already left for class, but she'd scribbled a note and taped it to my desk. Coffee's on me today. You did the right thing.
L.
I smiled. It was such a small thing, but after years of guilt and gaslighting, small kindnesses felt enormous. I walked to class slowly, soaking in the rhythm of the world, the chatter of students, the smell of rain on the pavement, the crisp wind that made my hair dance. For once, life wasn't something happening to me. It was happening around me, and I was part of it. At the cafeteria, the lunch lady, a round, cheerful woman named Marcia Dean, slid a tray toward me and said, You look like you could use an extra muffin today. I blinked. Really? She smiled. Honey, sometimes you can just see when someone's been through it. Take it. That blueberry muffin felt like a hug I didn't know I needed. After class, my economics professor, Dr. Nathaniel Reese, stopped me by the door. Grace, your essay on community finance was exceptional, he said. You've got insight beyond your years. Have you ever thought about applying for the campus mentorship program? I hesitated. I didn't think I was ready. He smiled. You're more ready than you know. For the next few weeks, life started taking shape again. I studied harder than ever, joined late-night study sessions, and even helped Lydia paint a mural in the dorm hallway, bright blues and yellows swirling across concrete. Each color felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Evan and I still talked every few days. Our calls became lighter, filled with laughter instead of guilt. He told me about his science fair project and how Mom didn't like that he'd drawn my name on his poster for Most Inspiring Person. She said it wasn't appropriate, he said, grinning. What did you say? I said it's true. I laughed until I cried. Around mid-semester, I noticed something remarkable. I wasn't just surviving. I was healing. I'd started budgeting carefully, tracking my expenses in a little notebook. For the first time, the numbers didn't scare me. Each page filled with small victories. $25 saved here, $10 earned from a tutoring session there. One evening, Lydia peeked into my room. You've been staring at that spreadsheet for an hour, she teased. Everything okay? I nodded.
Yeah.
I just realized I'm not behind anymore. That sentence hung in the air like a revelation. Not behind. Not stuck. Not dependent. Just me, moving forward. A few days later, I came back from class to find something unexpected outside my dorm door, a small basket with a note. Inside were cookies, a candle, and a card that read, "We heard you had a rough week a while back. We're glad you're here. Dorm 3B residents." I stared at it for a long moment before I sat down right there in the hallway and cried. Not the kind of crying that comes from pain, but the kind that comes from finally feeling seen. These weren't grand gestures. No one was trying to control or guilt or shape me. They were just kind. Simple.
Real.
That night, as Lydia and I shared the cookies and watched the city lights flicker outside the window, I said quietly, "It's strange. For years I thought love meant sacrifice. Now I think love just means safety." She smiled softly.
Exactly.
Real love doesn't cost you peace. I looked around the small dorm, the scattered art supplies, the books, the faint hum of the heater. For the first time in my life, everything felt enough. When I turned off the lamp that night, the darkness didn't scare me. It wrapped around me like a calm, steady friend. And as I drifted asleep, one thought stayed with me. For once, the house, even this tiny dorm room, felt bigger. By the time spring arrived, I almost didn't recognize myself. The girl who used to tiptoe around everyone's moods now woke up to her own alarm clock, stretched, and brewed coffee without worrying who might disapprove. My mornings had a rhythm: journal for 10 minutes, run across the quad, then class. Simple, grounding mine. I'd pinned photos of little victories to the wall above my desk, my scholarship letter, a picture from Lydia's birthday, my first A paper, a note from Evan that said, "Proud of you, Gracie," in messy handwriting. Each piece was a thread in the tapestry of the life I was weaving. Lydia and I shared a tiny fridge and too many late-night ramen noodles, but somehow, the cramped space felt like abundance. There was laughter, paint on the floor, and music leaking from her speaker as we studied. Sometimes I'd pause and just breathe it all in, the normalcy, the ease. One afternoon, while walking back from class, I spotted a flyer for a volunteer tutoring program. It offered small stipends for helping high school students apply for college. Something clicked. That weekend, I sat across from a nervous 17-year-old named Jamie Alvarez, showing him how to write his scholarship essay. "You think I really have a shot?" he asked, eyes wide. I smiled. "You don't need to think you do. You just need to apply. Let them see who you are." As I watched him type, I realized I was looking at a version of myself from a year ago, scared, hopeful, desperate for someone to believe in him. And this time I got to be that person. That night, as I walked home under a lilac-colored sky, I caught my reflection in a bookstore window. For the first time, I didn't see the quiet, uncertain girl who used to apologize for existing. I saw someone grounded. Someone becoming. In April, I got a letter from the scholarship board, not a warning or a reminder, but an invitation. They wanted me to represent the program at a small college event, to talk about resilience and gratitude. Standing at that podium, looking out at the rows of faces, I felt a lump in my throat. I thought opportunity was something that could be taken away, I said into the microphone. But it isn't. Opportunity lives inside you, in the moment you decide to choose yourself. The applause was soft, genuine. When it ended, a woman from the audience handed me a single white rose. I still keep it pressed between the pages of my notebook. A few weeks later, Mom called. Her voice was careful, thinner than I remembered. "Grace, I heard you spoke at that event." I hesitated. "Yeah, it went well."
She sighed.
"I saw a picture online. You looked happy."
I didn't know what to say.
Then, softly, she added, "Your brother talks about you all the time. He's proud." I didn't mean to hurt you." The silence that followed wasn't bitter this time. It was gentle, like air moving through open space. "I know," I said quietly, "but I can't come home yet." "I understand." It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was something close to acceptance, and for now, that was enough. After the call, I walked to the little garden behind the dorms. Lydia was there, kneeling in the dirt, planting marigolds in a row. "Need a hand?" I asked. She grinned. "Always." We spent the rest of the afternoon digging, laughing, and staining our hands with soil. When we finished, I looked at the flowers, bright orange and gold against the earth, and whispered, "They'll bloom fast." Lydia smiled. "So will you." And as the sun dipped low, I felt it, the quiet certainty that I was no longer running from my past. I was walking towards something new, something that finally belonged to me. A year later, I stood beneath the same morning sun that used to spill through my bedroom window at home, but this time, it was shining through the windows of my own small apartment. The smell of coffee filled the air, rich and warm. On the table sat 2 mugs, a small vase of daisies, and a neatly folded letter from the university's financial office confirming something I never thought I'd read again. Full academic renewal, scholarship extended. I'd done it. Outside, the city moved in gentle rhythm, buses humming, laughter echoing from the street below. My world wasn't huge or fancy, but it was mine. Every rent payment, every late-night study session, every quiet Sunday morning had built this piece, brick by brick. Evan was visiting for the weekend. He was taller now, voice deeper, still the same bright eyes. He stood by the window, looking out over the park. "You really live here alone?" "Yep," I said proudly. "And I even remembered to pay the electric bill on time this month." He laughed. "Mom wouldn't believe that." I smiled softly. "Maybe she doesn't have to." "Not anymore." He hesitated, then said, "She talks about you sometimes. Says she wishes things were different." I nodded. "I wish that too. But maybe this is different now because we're still talking and I'm still okay." He turned to me, serious. "You're more than okay, Grace. You're free." Those words landed deep. Later, as we walked through the park, I noticed how easily he talked now about school, his friends, even a girl he liked. He wasn't walking on eggshells anymore either. Somehow, by choosing peace for myself, I'd made space for him to breathe too. When we came back, he handed me a small envelope. "Mom said to give you this." Inside was a single folded note in her handwriting. "I found your old acceptance letter today. I shouldn't have hidden it. You earned this life. I hope someday we can talk over coffee. Love, Mom." I sat there for a long moment, the paper trembling in my hand. No tears this time, just gratitude. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally stopped waiting for someone else to fix it. That night, after Evan left, I stood by my window and looked out at the city lights flickering in the distance. They reminded me of that bus ride a year ago, the night I left home with nothing but faith and a duffel bag. Except now, I wasn't running away. I was rooted. I opened my journal, the same one I'd filled with pain and hope and prayers, and turned to a blank page. At the top, I wrote, "1 year later, I am still here, still learning, still free." Then, underneath, in smaller handwriting, "They hid my future once. I found it anyway." I closed the notebook, set it beside the glowing lamp, and looked around my quiet apartment. The plants on the sill, the books stacked near the couch, the little photo of me and Evan taped to the fridge. Everything I needed was here. Everything that mattered had stayed. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be chosen. I had already chosen myself. Freedom.